Hey guys, it's Shara from Woodshop Diaries, and if you know me very well or you've followed the channel for very long, you know that I don't like boring closets and I really don't like unnecessary doors. So when I recently remodeled my guest bathroom, I wanted to do something different with the closet. In my last bathroom remodel, I actually tore out the closet and replaced it with a larger vanity and a countertop cabinet. Truth be told, I would have really preferred to do that in this case, but there's a light switch here and another light switch and an outlet over here. And while those are movable, it just really wasn't worth the hassle to tear out these walls. So instead, I'm gonna turn this closet into a built-in cabinet. This is the last thing I need to do to wrap up this remodel, and I'm so ready to be done with it. So let's head to the shop and knock this thing out. Actually, before we head to the shop, let me first discuss how we went from this, the original closet, to this. I didn't film this whole remodel, so I don't have footage of this specific instance, but I did a very similar project in another closet a few years back, so I'll show you that footage since it's pretty much the same thing. First, I removed the door, the trim, and the door frame. Now at this point, I had a few options. I could have done my built-in like this hallway closet, where the cabinet went to the ground and the trim tied into the baseboard. But that's not what I wanted. Instead, I wanted my cabinet to be recessed into this opening and not tie into any other trim. So I built a frame to fit into the opening down here, screwed it to the studs, then covered it with drywall. And just an FYI, I made this about 14 inches tall just because it was about 14 inches from the top of the closet to the ceiling. So that way when I put this cabinet in here, it'll be centered vertically. Now I know by doing this, I'm gonna be losing some space here in the bottom of the closet, and I'll also be losing some space up at the top, but I don't care. Between the vanity and the cabinet that I'm gonna be replacing this with, I'll have more than enough storage for what I need. If you need every cubic inch of storage space that you can get, this probably isn't the project for you, but if you can spare a little bit of space, this is going to add so much more character and interest than the old closet door. Anyway, once the drywall was finished, I just painted and replaced the baseboard just like any other wall. And now I'm left with this big opening that I need to fill. So I'll measure this opening and the depth, and then I can head to the shop and get building. I opted to use red oak plywood for this project only because I had used red oak on the vanity in this bathroom. I thought since they'll be side by side, it would kind of look odd if they didn't match. So my closet opening measured about 20 inches wide by 68 inches tall, and then the depth from the back of the closet to the front of the drywall was about 19 inches. So essentially, I need to build a box that's just a bit smaller than that in all dimensions so that I can slide it into the hole. So first, I cut down my 3/4 inch plywood sheet into 2 tall sides and then 3 pieces, one for the top, one for the bottom, and one for the middle. This will give me my box, but I also need a face frame. Because I had plenty of plywood, I ripped my face frame pieces from this instead of using solid 1x3s, but I really regret doing that simply because it required a lot of extra edge banding and time. If I were doing this over, I would just use solid 1x3s for the face frame and save myself the headache. Nevertheless, what's done is done. So after I cut my face frame strips, I applied edge banding to one edge of each piece and then across the edge of the middle shelf. This will make more sense as it starts to come together. After edge banding, I drilled pocket holes to assemble everything. And again, this will make more sense as it comes together, but I not only drilled pocket holes to build the box, I also drilled them along the front edges of the sides, top and bottom, to be able to attach the face frame as well. Now the box is simply a box, so I just screwed the top, bottom, and middle shelf between the 2 side panels, making sure that the front edge pocket holes all stayed along the front edge. Then I assembled the face frame using pocket hole screws, keeping the edge banded edge all facing the center. Once this was assembled, I could edge band around all of the outside edges. At this point, I really wished that I had just used solid wood. But once it was banded, I placed the box on top and attached it through the pocket holes that I had drilled along the front edges. You'll notice that the face frame overhangs all sides of the box, and this kind of acts as the trim so that when it goes into the hole, this will butt up against the drywall. Now inside this box, I wanted to add some drawers in the bottom and then shelves in the top. So I installed drawer slides into the bottom opening. I will link a detailed video on installing drawer slides in the description below for more information on that. So once the slides were in, I, for once, remembered to drill my shelf pin holes before finishing the whole project in this top section. These shelf pin holes will allow me to add adjustable shelves using pins, but if you wanted stationary shelves, you could absolutely do that instead. Now for the drawer fronts. So I wanted them to have a continuous grain pattern and some specific trim. So I cut a piece of 3/4 inch plywood as if I was cutting a door for the bottom section of this cabinet. Once I made sure that it fit, I edge banded all 4 sides, then I grabbed some trim. So I had this leftover fluted trim board from some previous projects. I had used this fluted trim on the bathroom vanity in this bathroom and also another bathroom vanity previously. I thought using this trim here might kind of tie them together a bit, so I ripped the square edge and one of the rounded sections off each side for my drawer front trim. Of course, you can substitute just about any style of trim that you'd like for this part. This just happened to be what I had available. I cut to fit this trim with mitered ends around my drawer front panel. Then I glued these onto the front. Now hang with me, this is going to be awesome. Once that dried, I cut it into 3 pieces, one for each drawer front. Then I started building the drawer boxes. So I built these boxes from some scrap birch plywood that I had in my scrap pile since these pieces were fairly small. I cut pieces to make 2 deeper drawers and 1 shallow drawer, and I edge banded the tops of each piece. I'll link a detailed guide on how to measure for and size drawer boxes in the description below for more details on that. So normally I cut dados in my drawer box sides to install the 1/4 inch plywood bottom panel, but I'll just confess, it was blazing hot in the shop that day and I just wanted to get this done. So I skipped the dados. Instead, I just assembled my boxes using pocket holes and screws, and I just glued and stapled the 1/4 inch plywood over the bottom. The plywood edges are going to be covered by the slides once they're installed, and these drawers will be used for like towels and toilet paper, so this will be more than sufficient. But if you wanted to use dados, absolutely go for it. I was pretty excited to get these drawers installed so that I could get the fronts on and see how it looked. So to install the drawer fronts, I used these spacer blocks that come with the correct drawer front installation jig. But shims would work just as well. I screw them in from the inside of the drawer box, starting at the bottom and working my way up. Then I got to the top drawer, and I know this isn't super technical, but I just held it against the drawer box so that it looked like the gaps were even. Then I opened it from the back, keeping pressure on the front against the box. Then I could screw it in place from the inside. And honestly, at this point, I am loving how this is turning out. All that's left now is tacking a 1/4 inch plywood back panel onto the cabinet. Oh, and I also cut 2 3/4 inch plywood shelves before staining everything. I stained this in Minwax weathered oak because that's what stain color I used on the matching vanity in this bathroom. Then I sealed it with Minwax polyacrylic. While that dried, I came back inside to install some supports for the cabinet. So when I slide this into the opening, I need something along the bottom to hold it up. So I cut a piece of scrap 1x4, and this is actually the door trim that I took off the original closet. I screwed it into the back wall studs so that it's level with the front frame that I added to attach the drywall to. I do apologize, this is a tight fit, so it was really tough to get the camera in here. Then I cut 2 strips of 1x4 to lay across these and screw them in. Now, I knew that I was doing this ahead of time, so I did make sure to size my cabinet box to accommodate for these extra 3/4 inch thick support strips. And after the finish had dried on the cabinet, I could bring it inside and slide it right into the opening. Honestly, it's not going anywhere, but just to make sure, I added a few screws through the bottom into the supports underneath. Then I could replace the drawers and add the shelf pins to place my shelves. And with that, this bathroom is finished. Hallelujah. And this old boring closet is now a beautiful built-in cabinet that matches the vanity and also reminds me of those old-fashioned built-in closets that you see in older houses. Definitely much more fun than an old door. I really, really love how this turned out, and the trim detail I think makes this look really high-end. What's crazy to me though is that this is literally just a big box, but it made such a huge difference. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it come together with me, and I can't wait to show you what's next on the project list, so be sure to stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy building!